Hey everyone, either welcome back or welcome to my channel. And in today's video, I want to talk about what it was like for me while doing the CPR and first aid training course that I took during the week of October 21st to 25th. So before I get into any details, time for the intro. Hey everyone, my name is Ashley Stewart. Back in 2018, I was diagnosed with IIH. The long form of this name is called idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Some of you may also know this condition by its older names, either pseudotumor cerebri or benign intracranial hypertension. So if you're curious to learn more about what it's like to live with this condition, or what those of us living with this condition would like you to know, then I strongly encourage you to watch on. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell down below so that you get updated about further videos. I upload new content every Monday and Thursday afternoon. I wanted to make this video because I think it's important to show people that you can still do quite a few things even with IIH. Now, I did get lucky because my symptoms were pretty good actually while I was doing the course that I was doing. So before I get into kind of how I was feeling, I want to explain why I was actually doing this course and why I hadn't taken it before. So I actually had 2 days of training because I have never taken a first aid or CPR course before. And the reason I haven't done this was it just never worked out basically. So when I first originally planned to go to the U of S, I did it because I was actually interested in the Nutrition and Dietetics program, which would eventually allow me to be a registered dietitian. Now, during your studies, they get you to take your first aid and CPR training, and this seems to be a very common thing throughout the entire province because it seems to me that all healthcare professionals need to take it. So I would have eventually gotten the BLS training, what it's called now, through that, which I think at that time it probably still would have been called HCP, but that's not the point. It's the one for healthcare professionals. Because I had decided that I was no longer interested in doing the Nutrition and Dietetics program at the U of S, I just never took it. I never took the CPR course, and I kind of wish I had. So you're probably wondering why I decided to not go into nutrition and dietetics, and there was just a lot of things that happened during my first year of university. I discovered molecular biology. I discovered biochemistry, two of which things I had never heard of really before in those terms during high school, and I just fell in love with them. This is something that I can't really outwardly describe very well, but you just get this feeling that something just is meant to be. And I got that feeling with declaring biochemistry as my major, and I did it in my first year of being a student. I didn't have to declare my major until I was actually done my second year of university, but I decided to declare it when I did because I had been thinking about it for a couple of weeks at the time I decided, and something was just telling me it was the right thing to do. And usually those decisions I make rather fast, and this one took a little bit, but it was one of those decisions that it just felt right. And now I'm happy that I did because I don't think the nutrition and dietetics program was really for me. Now, it got me into the biomedical sciences learning community that I did, which was probably one of the best things I ever did, being a first year student at the U of S. So in these learning communities, they basically allowed you to get into classes that were really hard to get into because they were high demand. You kind of got to meet people through them, and we got to learn stuff about the school that you weren't really taught about, but you kind of could discover on your own, but they made it a point to teach you about it. So how to use the library and resources and basically career stuff. It was very well worth having that extra class that one semester, and I really missed it in second semester. Now that I've given you a little bit of background on that, I think it's really important for me to describe what it was like to do this course, especially having IIH, because there might be some things that you find difficult during the course, and or at least there was one thing in particular that was really hard on me, and this is when we were doing what was called spinal turns. The scenario was that someone had an injury and it was thought to be a spinal injury. So normally you don't move someone in the case of a spinal injury. There are certain circumstances which you have to move them, and you have to perform what is called a spinal turn in order to move them without injuring them further. I was actually the person they were turning. By the time I had this done to me, it was 3 or 4 times it was starting to bother me, but I kind of got through this by closing my eyes. So it was really only making me dizzy when I had my eyes open. So as long as I had my eyes closed, I was okay. But it was still a little bit of a vertigo feeling when I was done. During the actual CPR, I thought I was going to have more trouble. I honestly had more trouble with the fact that my breathing out is a little bit harder. This is from, I swear this is still from having a history of asthma when I was little. So there are certain things that still bug me, but I'm not actually on any actual prescriptions for it anymore. But I always tell any medical professionals that I do have a history of it. The only time that I ever have trouble with my asthma or allergies really anymore is around any type of smoke. So in particular, forest fire smoke, people smoking around me, stuff like that, it immediately makes me stuffy. Forest fire smoke will actually keep me inside. It is really, really difficult for me to breathe. So when there's a air quality warning, I'm usually stuck inside. If you remember from my update, I was talking about the 4 different levels that you could take. So there was A, B, C, and BLS. So level A, again, is adults only, although they did do some work with older kids. And then there really isn't an actual course that just covers adults and children. So B incorporates children into that as well. So you do adults and children. And then there's level C, which includes infants. So you do everyone. And basically it just adds in the infant component. So you do CPR on infants and choking with infants. And then BLS, there was a lot. There was basic bagging. So we didn't do anything down the throat for with BLS, but we had a basic mask with a bag on it. So I did learn how to do that. I didn't mind doing that actually. I preferred that to the actual mask because it was easier on me too. We did rescue breathing, which there was numbers you had to know for that. So it was a lot of counting and a lot of thinking, and it took a lot of focus. Like, I'm kind of glad that I do meditation with awareness and focusing on on breathing, because honestly I think the meditation helped me a little bit with the breath, although I was still missing it. I was mistiming the one. I think it was more so because it was closer to the end of the day. Had I been doing that in the morning, I think I would have been okay. But because I was getting tired, it was really, really hard for me to focus. Pulse checks was another one, so I learned how to do pulse checks. For everyone else, I was the only one doing BLS level. So everyone else was able to start chest compressions before me, so it was throwing me off a little bit. Because I had to do ABCs, but I had to do airway, and then breathing, 2 breaths, circulation, check for pulse, and then start chest compressions. Everyone else didn't have to do the 2 breaths or the pulse check, so they got to the chest compressions a lot faster, so that was kind of distracting. But it was just like, just focus on yourself. So by the time often we got to the AED part where, you had the AED in your hands, I was just finishing my pulse check. Jaw thrust, so where you push up the jaw. And that was honestly a little bit hard to get that. And basically, if you did the jaw thrust right with the dolls, basically, you'd be able to see the chest rise. I got a little bit of extra practice with CPR. That's why I was actually quite tired after the first day because we did all of the BLS stuff the first day. I actually had honestly more trouble with my being on my knees constantly for that long because my knees don't do well anymore, being that I worked as a person who stocked grocery shelves for how long did I do that? It wasn't for very long, and it was on cement floors, so yeah, it's very, very hard for me to kneel on the floor now. As for the actual CPR component, I didn't notice any issues with my head at all. So I think that's good to know. I mean, everybody could be different, but I didn't notice anything. One thing that I do want to say about the course is that I miss school. My YouTube is like pretty much all learning. It kind of gets old after a while, and like I said, I try and limit my screen time because then my eyes start to hurt and that can make my head hurt. The actual first aid stuff was crazy because it was a lot of information for me. All the different types of injuries and like how you deal with each one and actually using different pieces of cloth to deal with those types of injuries. That was probably the hardest thing for me. If you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like to add to this video, please leave a comment down below. And as for now, that's it for today. Bye, everyone.